Bully Resistance Show is brought to you by Nathan Alfred Insurance, an independent insurance agency located in Vienna, West Virginia. They specialize in auto, home, life, and business insurance. What makes this agency unique is your ability to shop the market for you. The Bully Resistance Show is brought to you by Planet Fitness. Come check out your new and improved Planet Fitness. I'm a member of Planet Fitness, and they have all new strength equipment, tanning beds, rowing machines, and more. Starting at just $10 a month, you can join Planet Fitness, home of the judgment-free zone, where members experience a hassle-free, non-intimidating environment. Please see club or visit planetfitness.com for more information. The Bully Resistance Show is also brought to you by Berkshire Hathaway Home Service Real Estate Center as a part of their community outreach. They truly believe that selling houses is important, but helping make our community a better place to live is even more important. Also want to thank Bobby and Michelle Jones, Jeff Belt, Pamela Sayer, Rick Madison, Connie Pample, Jerry and Karen Gartrell, Crossroads Church. You can help us fight bullying in the public schools and help support the Bullying Resistance Show with David Wells. For more information, go to www.davebond.org. That's www.davebond.org. Welcome, everyone, to the Bully Resistance Show with David Wells, nationally known smooth jazz artist, CEO and co-founder of the Chocolate Jazz Foundation, and the co-host of a 2-hour syndicated radio program called Chocolate Jazz Radio. Bully Resistance is a weekly 1-hour show that's a motivational, informative, and inspirational program. We will have interviews with musicians, actors, government officials, politicians, psychologists, counselors, and just average day citizens. Of course, the topics will include making right choices, never giving up desire, discipline, determination, bullying in public school, the workplace, and in your community, bully resistance and prevention, self-defense, jiu-jitsu, and current affairs, and much, much more. And if you're ready, we are. Here's your host, David Wells.
I want to thank everyone for tuning in to another episode of the Bully Resistance Show with David Wells. My name is David, and today we have a special guest from California. Now, one of the main reasons actually why I wanted him to be on the show was because he's actually involved in jiu-jitsu, which they say is the toughest martial arts on the planet. He began jiu-jitsu in April 2011 at the age of 46 and has been going strong for 8 years, and actually has won many high-level tournaments across the country. So at this time, I want to introduce Gene Moses on the Bully Resistance Show. Thanks, Gene, for coming on the show.
Hey, thank you for having me, David.
My good. You know, I have to mention this to you. I came across how I started following you on Facebook is that I came across a podcast that you were doing at the time, and I think, Gene, the last podcast was probably one of the most interesting podcasts, and it was actually, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was more of a it was on a debate of he was an atheist. And does that ring a bell?
Yeah, there was an atheist that actually reached out to me. He's also a practitioner of jiu-jitsu, and so we had that common thread. He reached out to me, and we set up just a dialogue, not a debate, just a dialogue back and forth, try to understand each other's worldview.
Right.
Probably that's the best way to summarize it.
You know, and I'll tell you this, this is not really a so-called Christian podcast, but I was actually raised in church all my life. My dad was a full-time pastor, and I was pretty impressed, Gene, on how you were able to talk with him, discuss the whole topic, and how you use different sources but it was a really interesting podcast. And I have to say, I was a little disappointed, where, there wasn't, you're not even doing the podcast anymore. Is that right?
No, I'm not. It's still active. I mean, it's still, you can still find it online, but I haven't published any new episodes just because I've been busy. I opened a school about 19 months ago, a jiu-jitsu school, and that's consuming all of my time.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. So how, I thought your name was always BJJ Moses, but of course it's Gene Moses. How did you get BJJ Moses? How did that name come about?
That's an interesting question. So there was a girl there's kind of like a social media famous girl, Facebook, Instagram, that trained at our academy in Temecula. Her name was BJJ Girl. That was her handle on Facebook and Instagram, and she had over 100,000 followers at the time. I haven't looked at her profile recently, but this is like 5 years ago. And so she was training, and the instructor, he told one student, okay, you're going to go with BJJ Girl over there. And then he pointed to another guy and he goes, and you're going to go with BJJ Moses, because my name's not Moses. It's my last name is Cook. And so, Moses is not even part of my real name.
Oh, stop.
So he called me that for two reasons. If you see a picture of me, you'll see that my hair is almost completely white. My beard is white.
Right.
Now that I have a full beard, I do look resemble Moses from the Ten Commandments movie. And so as soon as he called me that, it just stuck. Everybody started calling me Moses. And so I kept the BJJ Moses just as a way to signify, like, the whole nickname, that it was in fact a nickname. So
okay,
that's the story.
Okay, Gene, let me ask you this. On Facebook, there was a picture, and I couldn't tell if it was you or not, but it was a picture of you with a beard, and maybe you were talking about you were in the mountains for a while, and you had was that you? Do you know what picture I'm talking about?
No.
Oh man, it was
a joke, I think. I took it. It probably was, if I recall, it might have been a picture of my brother. So I have a younger brother.
Oh.
And
okay.
he had a beard and long hair at the time, and I posted a picture of him, and I think that's what it was. I said, I've been up, reflecting on life in the mountains, and I'm coming back, and I have a new perspective. I said something like that.
Okay, yeah, you guys resembled a little bit. I mean, what I recall from it. So, Gene, let me ask you this. Jiu-jitsu, like I mentioned previously, they say it's one of the toughest martial arts on the planet. And that being said, you starting jiu-jitsu at 46, I mean, how or why did you actually get involved in jiu-jitsu?
Well, back in 2011, I was 50 pounds overweight. I didn't know I was 50 pounds overweight. I thought I was maybe 20 or 30 pounds overweight.
Okay.
Because I didn't realize how far I had gone. So I weighed 230 pounds, and I put out on Facebook to my friends, I said, I want to try some type of new exercise, but I don't want to just go to the gym or jog on a treadmill or even run around the block. I want to do something that's going to engage my mind, if possible, and be long lasting. I don't want this. I want to kind of like a lifestyle exercise.
Right. Right
away, there was a guy that responded. He was actually one of my listeners to a different podcast that I had, and he was in Alaska, and he responded and said, you need to try jiu-jitsu. And I said, I'm too old for jiu-jitsu, but I had been watching the UFC for quite a while, since about 2003, 2004.
Sure.
And I really had taken an interest in it. And I was fascinated by jiu-jitsu from the standpoint of Joe Rogan being able to explain, like, one step ahead of the fighter, what he was trying to accomplish. He would say, like, now he needs to step his right foot over his body. And then the guy would do it. I was like, wow, there's like a whole system to this that I didn't even realize. And so I told the guy, I'm too old. I'm 46 years old. And he said, I'm 48 years old, and you're not too old. It's going to be tough, but you can do it. So I went down to the local jiu-jitsu school. They were just opening. I walked in at 10 minutes to 6. The class was at 6 p.m. I was just inquiring about prices and schedule.
Sure.
And they basically forced me into a gi and made me do the class. And I mean, I could have said no, but I went along with it, and against my will, because I told them I needed to be mentally prepared, to do a class like this.
Sure.
And so I did the first class, and then at the end of the class, I signed up. I said, okay, I'm going to do this. Because at that point, I realized this is something I could actually do if I set my mind to it.
Right. I will say this. This wasn't until I was in jiu-jitsu. Of course, I've only been doing it for like 2 years. I actually train at Marietta Combat Sports. Matter of fact, the professor is Dustin Ware out of Columbus, Ohio. And you know, not to get off on a tangent, of course, I'll get off on tangents here. You'll notice, but getting to the prices of or the monthly fees of jiu-jitsu, I mean, it can be an expensive sport. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, in California, it's probably more than out there. The average, just to give your listeners, we charge $130 for a membership if you do an annual agreement.
Okay.
So $130, and we include the uniform with that. So you're getting a lot. I mean, you can come. I think we have 7 adult classes a week and 7 kids classes a week, or 9 kids classes a week. So you're getting a lot for that money. You can come every day, twice a day if you want, and you're really getting a lot of hands-on instruction from people who have devoted their lives to this. So I definitely think the value's there, as opposed to paying, $30 for a gym where you're just going there to use it. You're renting the equipment from them. Right. You're getting like instruction. You go to a gym and you ask somebody to help you and instruct you on how to lift weights. It's going to be a lot more than that.
You're right. I know that it does vary, and with our membership in Ohio, it's like $75, and then I've heard in like New York, of course, cost of living is a lot more expensive. It goes over $200, a month. But anyway, getting back to jiu-jitsu, one of the things that was pretty shocking, and I didn't know that, and I didn't know this until maybe 6 months ago, but jiu-jitsu has the actual highest dropout rate. And what they're saying it's not because of family, or work or school. What do you think? Why do you think there's such a high dropout rate in jiu-jitsu?
Because it's difficult. There's a high dropout rate in any form of intense exercise, whether it's a gym membership or, right. Jazzercise class or what, anything that's going to challenge you and push you is going to be difficult. And I think you're going to have some attrition. So usually on average, they say 1% to 2% at the most make it from white belt all the way to black belt. So that's a lot of people. Out of 1,000 people, you might have 10 that actually make it all the way to their black belt. And part of the reason is it's a very slow process to get promoted. That's one factor. There's a lot to learn. You have to be able to, it's not just about being big and strong, or being in shape. You have to retain information. There's, multiple details for every technique. There's different scenarios that put you in different positions, and it's like chess. There's a move, then there's a counter to the move, and there's a counter to the counter, depending on how deep you want to go. And all this takes a long time. So on average, a guy will get his black belt in 8 to 12 years, usually. That's usually the general average. So that's a factor. People in America, especially Western culture, we want instant gratification. Jiu-jitsu is not going to give you instant gratification. It's going to be more like real life. It's going to be a long grind uphill, and only those who really have dedicated themselves to learning it are going to end up on the top of the hill.
Right. So how do you being an instructor, how do you get promoted when you don't have anybody but yourself there? Do you?
I still train. So my instructor is local. He allowed me to open a school 8 miles away from his facility. And so that's very rare. But he allowed me to do that because there was a whole area of about 75,000 people in this neighborhood, and there was no close jiu-jitsu school, and it would take 30 minutes to get to his. So we worked together and we opened this jiu-jitsu school in South Temecula. And so I live less than 1 mile away from his academy. So I still am required to train. If I want to continue to progress, he's requiring me to train. So I try to make it to his school at least twice a week. So in addition to teaching all the classes I'm teaching, adult classes, kids classes, I'm still getting in my own training, and I'm still getting in my own strength and conditioning with a strength trainer also in addition to that. So my whole life right now is just training and rest. Rest. That's it.
Wow. I don't know if you know much what I do, but during the school year, I spend about 90% of my time going into public schools, pretty much all over Tennessee and Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, and I do these school assemblies, and my main topics is, of course, bullying and bully prevention, making right choices, and also like never giving up. And one of the things, Gene, that I really stress with my assembly is I tell the kids that, when things get rough, either at home or at school or when you're playing sports or not going your way, the easiest thing for anybody to do is to quit. I mean, anybody can. Anybody can go ahead and pick up a guitar and learn how to play it. But so many of us, just like jiu-jitsu, we quit. And, jiu-jitsu is, like I said, and I'm going to go back to this over and over and over, because it's a tough martial arts, and it's really, it really grinds on people that are older, because there's things that we have to do as being older. I mean, we have to have, like you said, we have to have more rest. We have to go ahead, and there has to be some type of strength and conditioning to keep our, when we get older, we lose our muscle mass, we lose our strength. So we have to go ahead and continue to strengthen our joints and everything else. All that being said, I mean, has there been times when you wanted to quit? I mean, either as a white belt, blue belt, purple belt. I mean, have there been times, or was you just were you so addicted that you didn't think about it?
Actually, the latter. So most people that I talk to, most of my students or friends that train jiu-jitsu, most of them reach this point where they're thinking about quitting. Something comes up, maybe life gets busy, they take a new job, their schedule changes. There's all kinds of factors in life. They have kids. Most people, I would say, the overwhelming majority of the people reach some stage where they are ready to quit. My instructor, I've talked to him before about this. He's never had that feeling of thinking about quitting. So far to this point, I haven't either. And so about 8 years in, I haven't actually got sick of it yet, which is unusual because I'm the kind of guy that tends to go from one hobby to another. Usually, 3 to 5 years would be a good range. But this has benefits on so many levels that I know that if I quit for 2 weeks, if I just took 2 weeks off and didn't bother to train or do anything, I know that I would feel the physical consequences of that rest right away. So 2 weeks turns into 2 months, 2 months turns into 2 years. Before you know it, I would gain 50 pounds back.
Right.
And my health is better than it's ever been. My resting heart rate is 50 right now. My blood pressure is 50? Regulated.
You're
50,
dead.
Yes.
50
beats per minute.
That's awesome, man. That's incredible.
My recovery time, yeah. I can recover, like we've done tests. I can recover my heart rate within 30 seconds to a normal heart rate, going up to about 150, 155. As soon as I rest, within 30 seconds, it'll drop down to 105 or down to 100. So I have really seen huge benefits. Yeah. This is just a result of training.
No, let me ask you this. You said something a couple minutes ago, how the Western culture wants instant gratification.
Yes.
And I think, you're so right. We are so self-centered, selfish people. It's greed. We want everything now. And I think that if there would be less turnover or dropout rate if people go in with a better attitude, where, okay, this is not, and this might have something to do with instructors when they come in, when there's a person wants to come in interested in jiu-jitsu, maybe that's one of the things that the instructor needs to say, listen, this is not instant gratification. This is a long-term lifestyle. I think that if they know that up front, either they're going to not want to do it, or they're going to do it and they're going to stay in the long haul. But I think you're so right. I mean, the whole culture is just, that's what it's all about, instant gratification, But let me ask you this. What has been the most difficult thing to work through when you're training jiu-jitsu? Now, and what I mean by this, and I'll tell you what I go through. Being at my age, I'm ruling and I'm training with people half my age or even younger. They're stronger, they're faster, and it's just and I'm trying to getting injured. I mean, not getting injured, prevention injury. But what has been the most difficult thing? You being competition, you have to train, and you have to train really hard, because when you compete against somebody, first of all, you have no idea who you're competing against, and they're going to go 110%. So you have to train hard throughout the week, right?
Yes, that's true. I'm actually competing in 2 days. I'll be competing on Sunday.
Oh, so
and I had to go down in age to get an opponent, because a lot of times there's not guys. I'm 54 years old, so a lot of times there's not guys in my age division. So I went down to not too much. I went down to the 45 to 49-year-old bracket.
Now,
but there's still a difference there.
Yeah. So is there a difference there too?
A little difference. I mean, you can have a 45-year-old he looks like he's 35, you know? So it all depends on who the guy is. But the beauty, let me touch on something you just said. The beauty of jiu-jitsu is that it doesn't matter if my opponent's stronger than me. What matters is that my technique is better than his. And technique involves the recall of details, the timing, being able to know when to do and what to do. And then the third factor is being physically able to pull it off. Because your mind can tell you, okay, I need to do this, this, and this. But if your body is not along for the ride, then you got a problem. So those three factors, I think, really, even though it's not, there's no instant gratification. Those three factors are a reminder that this is a longer journey. This is about obtaining information and learning how and training my body over time. And you see this in the different ranks in jiu-jitsu. Generally speaking, a blue belt is always going to beat a white belt. Generally speaking, a purple belt is always going to beat a blue belt, and up and down the line, right? So the way that Brazilian jiu-jitsu has been established from Brazil to here now, and the fact that it takes a long time to get promoted and to learn all the details, they lend to it something that you don't get in other martial arts. Because I can teach you how to throw a front kick, a roundhouse kick, a side kick, and a couple of punches, and already you can spend time mastering those, but those are pretty basic things. I mean, jiu-jitsu is complete. Some people say there's an unlimited, uncountable number of techniques and positions and variables.
Right.
So that's what makes it interesting. It's a pursuit it's like a pursuit of a game, and the more you apply yourself, the better you get at the game. And so I know. So I looked at that from the beginning. I looked at, wow, this guy is a blue belt, but he's 45 years old. This guy's a white belt. He just got out of the Marine Corps. He's 22 years old. The Marine should be able to beat the blue belt, but that's not the case in jiu-jitsu. In jiu-jitsu, the guy who has the more knowledge of how to control somebody on the ground is the one who's going to be the victor. So, and that's what I love about it.
You know, Gene, let me ask you this. You know, you mentioned it's about technique, it's about details, but when you get into our age, because I'm 53, when you get into our age, you know, we often forget details. I mean, we forget where we put our keys, and we're finding out they're in our hand. I mean, I actually I had 2 concerts in Illinois, and when I pulled up, it was the venue, and I was on the marquee and everything else. I go in, the band was rehearsing. I introduced myself to the buyer. I went out to the car to get my instruments, and I forgot my instruments. I forgot everything. And, you know, that being said, how can people remember details? I mean, are there supplements? Is it just drilling? Is it YouTube? Is it because, I mean, we're going to forget some details over time.
Yeah, that's a great question. And nobody ever told me this in the beginning. So typically you're learning 1 or 2 new techniques, or maybe even more, depending on where you're training at, per week, right?
Right.
You spread that out over a year. Let's say if I learn 2 new details, a submission and a new position, or a transition, right? Well, that's over 100 new pieces of information during the course of a year. And each submission might have anywhere from 3 to 5 to 7 details It's a step-by-step process. So now you're talking about retaining 700 to 1,000 details per year. There's no way I'm going to be able to do that. So what I encourage my students to do, and this is what I wish somebody would have told me in the beginning, is like when you practice a technique, you need to know the technique. You need to be able to be somewhat familiar with it so that when somebody does it on you, you can see what they're doing. You recognize what's happening. But you don't need to master every technique. What you need to do is you need to focus on the techniques that actually work well with your ability, your strength, your ability to move, your skill level. And so what I do, at Purple Belt, I kind of figured this out. So at Purple Belt, what I did was I decided that I was going to get really good at a sequence of events that would end in a submission. So I would pull close guard, I would do an arm drag and take the back, and then I would choke out my opponent. And so all I did for about 3 years is practice that over and over in sparring, over and over and over. Wow. I was learning the other things like omoplatas and kimuras and, the other submissions.
Sure.
But those weren't on my radar. When it was time to spar, I was going with the one thing that I wanted to master. Because somebody had told me at that point, you don't have to be a black belt. You just have to be a black belt at a few things. And I thought, if I could be a black belt at a few things, then I could legitimately do what a black belt does if I could get in those positions.
Yeah.
So that was kind of an eye-opener for me. So I tell my students now, look, when we show you a technique, if it works when you're practicing it, then I want you to try it when you're sparring. If it works right off the bat when you're sparring, then I want you to take ownership of that and say, okay, this is going to be in my tool bag now. And you need to practice that on a regular basis so you don't forget it. And then that way so I encourage people to come up with 2 options in every single position.
Right.
So if I'm in side control, I should have 2 ways to finish you. Right. If I'm in mount, I should have 2 ways to finish you. If I'm on your back, I should have 2 ways to finish you. This is a good base to start out with. That way you're not overwhelmed with information, and that way you're able to process and get good at a handful of things instead of being, not so good at 1,000 things.
Right. Gene, one of the things that I share with the kids is that, the choices that we make will either lead us closer or further away from our goals and our dreams. And, and the bigger the goals, the bigger the dreams we have, harder the choices are going to be. And I know this. I know competing is a huge mental thing with me. I mean, I compete and I hate it. And I mean, but it's really developing me into a better, a practitioner. And what it reflects I've always had, I've been full-time, traveling as a musician for 18 years. And my biggest fear was stage fright. And, but there's certain things that we do, but has competing, did you always enjoy competing, or did you compete in high school, or if you went to college, did you compete in other sports?
No, I didn't play any sports in high school. I surfed in high school because I lived, not too far from the beach. So I surfed a lot, or as much as I could. But when I was younger, when I was 11 and 12, I played, 11, 12, 13, 14 probably. And then again, I tried it at 16. I played baseball. And I was never a good baseball. I thought I was a good baseball player, but I was never a good baseball player. And so I kind of realized, like, I'm not a fast runner. I didn't like the pressure of being a weak link on a team. The guy hits a fly ball to you and you drop it and then you just disappointed the whole team. So I tended to gravitate, I think, towards surfing and mountain biking and other types of sports that actually are individual sports for the most part. Okay. Go ahead.
So getting into the competition, did you like competing right off the bat, or did you? We all have jitters, but did you have to adapt, or did you always enjoy it?
I did not enjoy it at all. In fact, the first tournament that I showed up for, I asked myself, why am I doing this to myself? Like, are you crazy? Because I found out that my opponent was like 5 years younger than me, and he had been doing martial arts all of his life. He'd been doing jiu-jitsu for about a year, so I was like, great, man, this guy's got a huge advantage on me. He beat me on points. He didn't submit me, so that wasn't too bad. But I always tell my students, I lost every single match the first 5 tournaments that I competed in. The first 5 tournaments, I lost every single match. Finally, my 6th tournament, I won 1 match and landed a silver medal because of the way the bracket was set up. So when I went to the school that I'm at now, my instructor asked me, do you like competing? And I said, yeah, I like the idea of competing. I really like the idea of winning a gold medal, but the problem is that I suck at competing, and I don't know if I'm going to compete anymore. And he said, we can make some adjustments. I can help you. We produced a lot of really good competitors. And I thought maybe he's just trying to get me to sign up,
Sure.
So I didn't take it seriously, but sure enough, Tom Cronin, my professor, we call him professors, he worked with me and gave me a lot of one-on-one attention. And the next tournament that I signed up was the Los Angeles Open at Blue Belt Master 4, and I won it. So as soon as that happened, it was on. I got the bug. I was like, I can do this now.
So Gene,
it's a lot funner.
Right. So what was the one advice that your instructor gave you that you felt that really helped you in competing?
You got to have a game plan. So before, I was talking to all these people, getting different opinions. Some people would say game plan. Some people would say, no, you just got to go in there and be ready for whatever happens. I disagree. I like the approach where you have a game plan. You come in and you try to impose your will from the moment the referee says go. That way you put him on the defense, and now he's responding to what you're doing instead of you responding to what he's doing. So that made a huge difference. Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about the preparations before you actually compete. So you're saying that you're going to be competing in a couple days.
Sunday.
Okay, Sunday. So leading up, when do you start getting more intense or training more or harder before you compete? Is it just like a week, or is it 6 weeks?
Yeah, the week before. Because I compete so much, the week before. So, and because I'm training a lot, I'm usually in shape at any time.
Okay.
And so I like the beginning of the week. So it's like Sunday, for example, I'm competing. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I trained hard. Yesterday, I just did strength and conditioning. Now today and tomorrow, I'm just going to rest. And then Sunday, my body feels great right now. So Sunday, I should wake up feeling aggressive and ready to go.
Okay, Gene. So when you say, of course, when you train, are you saying that you train? I know you train every day. You train by instructing and everything else and giving privates and everything else. But when you train, are you saying you go back to your head instructor and you go there to train? Because you mentioned that you actually train maybe twice a week.
I do both. So when I train at his school, I go and I'm a student when I'm there. Okay. And when I'm training at my school, I'm the instructor, but then when it comes time to spar, we spar at minimum 5 rounds each night.
Whoa.
So I'm also sparring with all of my students,
young and old,
and I have some tough students.
Okay, so
and they would love to tap me out. So it keeps me on my game, so to speak, because I don't want them to tap me out. I'm their instructor, so
sure.
I have to push myself. Also, they're pushing themselves. So likewise, I got to push myself in order to prevent from myself just getting in bad positions.
Okay. Let me ask you this. I have a problem. I have a problem of using my age as an excuse. And since we started talking about this, you've never, since I'm this old, this is what I got to do. And it seems like you're really you don't use your age as a crutch, but when you actually train hard, do you roll hard, at 100% every night, or is it just, no? Okay. So how do you break that down?
No, I usually roll about 70%, I would say, because I don't want to get injured. You roll 100% every day, you're going to get hurt. And so I take that into consideration. Okay. I exert just enough energy to get the job done. Right. And then the week of the tournament, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, now I'm going to turn it up. And I tell my students and my training partners, look, I'm competing on Sunday, so I'm going to turn up the intensity. I'm going to turn up the speed. And I need to push myself so that I'm breathing heavy by the end of the round.
Okay.
Otherwise, if I'm going 70%, I'm not even really breathing by the end of the round. I'm still calm and I feel, like I'm not exerting any energy. So I have to really turn it up to get myself breathing hard. And then I'll go spar. Like this week when I was at my instructor's, I was making sure that I was sparring with black belts and brown belts and really good purple belts.
Jeez.
So when I'm preparing for a tournament, I'm not looking to spar with white belts or even blue belts. I'm actually like, I want to get my butt kicked. I want them to push me because that being on the losing end causes me to fight harder and expend more energy. So that's the kind of conditioning that I need. Because when you compete and the referee says fight, you got adrenaline, and that guy's coming at you with bad intentions. He wants you to quit. He wants to make you quit. And so you got to be, when you factor in adrenaline and the excitement of competing, and then you got your family and your friends and your teammates watching you, there's a lot of pressure there. And so it's hard to replicate that moment in training. But I find the best way is to get with somebody who's better than you, right, and try your hardest to beat them. That's about the closest thing that I know of that comes close to competing.
Gene, if you don't mind, I want to go ahead and just take a few minutes and recognize the sponsors, and also let the listeners know how they can help support the Bully Resistance Show. And when we come back, I want to go ahead and talk a little bit more about competition and some of the things that you cannot afford not to do to continue to compete. That's next.
The Bully Resistance Show is brought to you by Nathan Alfred Insurance, an independent insurance agency located in Vienna, West Virginia. They specialize in auto, home, life, and business insurance. What makes this agency unique is your ability to shop the market for you. The Bully Resistance Show is brought to you by Planet Fitness. Come check out your new and improved Planet Fitness. I'm a member of Planet Fitness, and they have all new strength equipment, tanning beds, rowing machines, and more. Starting at just $10 a month, you can join Planet Fitness, home of the judgment-free zone, where members experience a hassle-free, non-intimidating environment. Please see club or visit planetfitness.com for more information. The Bully Resistance Show is also brought to you by Berkshire Hathaway Home Service Real Estate Center as a part of their community outreach. They truly believe that selling houses is important, but helping make our community a better place to live is even more important. Also, I want to thank Bobby and Michelle Jones, Jeff Belt, Pamela Sayer, Rick Madison, Connie Pample, Jerry and Karen Gartrell, Crossroads Church. You can help us fight bullying in the public schools and help support the Bullying Resistance Show with David Wells. For more information, go to www.davebond.org. That's www.davebond.org.
Well, thanks for tuning back in to the Bully Resistance Show with David Wells. My name is David, and we're actually we're talking with Gene Cook. It's not Gene Moses. It's not BJJ Moses, but it's Gene Cook. And for those that are just now tuning in, Gene is a full-time jiu-jitsu competitor, owner of his own facility out of California, and we've been talking about competition and battling, from stage fright to competing to just everything that we go through as practitioners of jiu-jitsu. Gene, you mentioned that one of the best sources for people to get in touch with you is Instagram. Tell us how to do that, and tell us what kind of content that you actually put on Instagram.
So just search for me on Instagram under BJJ Moses. You'll find me pretty easily. And I've been posting a lot of just because with Instagram you can only post 60 seconds. So I've been posting clips of me in competition doing particular techniques, but I break down the technique in the description. So I show what I'm doing and I explain what I'm doing, and then you see the end result. It's one thing to show a technique without, with a training partner in the gym and say, okay, you're going to put your foot here, you're going to put your hand over here, and then boom, you get it. If you can do that in a tournament where the guy's resisting 100%, then you know that the technique works. Right. And you can see me actually doing the technique in the tournament and explaining all the details, which I think is really beneficial.
Yeah, because for some reason I'm still on Facebook, and of course we're finding out that Facebook's getting outdated, and I see so many posts, but I've never actually have seen posts of you doing technique. It's really just maybe like different picture still shots, but so I will go ahead and get hooked up that way. Back to a couple questions. Let me ask you this: what's one thing that you cannot afford not to do to continue to compete in jiu-jitsu? I mean, for like myself, I have to work out and I have to stay strong and I have to rest a lot. But what's one thing that you cannot afford not to do? Continue training in jiu-jitsu?
I would say probably the most important factor is I need to keep learning. Jiu-jitsu is not something where you arrive at a certain level and then you're like, okay, I got this. Right. Jiu-jitsu is a continuous learning process. So I would say the most important factor for me, if I'm going to continue, is I have to keep learning. I have to keep getting better. I have to keep adding knowledge to my technique, adding technique to my game. And so I would say that that's probably the most important. So
just learning new technique to
yes.
Get your competitors so they don't know what you're doing.
Right. Because you get, let's say you learn a half guard sweep, right? There might be 30 different responses. When you try that sweep, there might be 30 different responses to that sweep. One guy shifts his weight to that side, the other guy shifts his weight to that side. One guy posts his hands on the mat, another guy goes for an underhook. So it's not just learning the half guard sweep. You have to learn all the different responses to the half guard sweep, whichever half guard sweep you're using, and then you have to learn how to deal with those responses.
Right.
So you're continually problem solving. Right. You do something, your opponent presents a problem, you have to solve that problem, and then you have to move. So this is where a sharp intellect is very valuable in jiu-jitsu, combined with the dedication to training and being in shape. Mm. You combine those elements and you're going to be good in jiu-jitsu. One of those elements alone will only take you so far in jiu-jitsu. But you mentioned something a moment ago about training. You said you have to keep on training. So I haven't, in 2012, I was working with a personal trainer. And I was getting so tired from the personal training that I couldn't do jiu-jitsu. Like if I went to class in the evening, I was just dead tired. And so I resolved in my mind, I'm too old to do both. My body needs recovery time. I can't do personal training, he was putting me through a weightlifting routine, and also jiu-jitsu. So I knew a lot of guys who are high-level jiu-jitsu guys that are very skinny. They don't have any muscle mass on them. And so I reasoned that I could just work on my technique and forget about going to the gym. Just spend my time on the mat, and it would pay off in the end. So I did that since 2012. I just finished my 9th week with a personal trainer, 4 days a week. But this time we've taken a different approach. This time, this personal trainer is completely different than the first one. This personal trainer is having me do exercises that are specific to jiu-jitsu. So I show him the type of movement that I need to do with somebody on top of me or somebody resisting. And then he has developed a workout routine that allows me to do those types of exercises to get stronger in those areas. And you'll see these videos. I've been posting these videos also on my Instagram account. So you'll see those also.
Well, that's about all we have for the Bully Resistance Show with David Wells. But before we go, again, I want to thank all the sponsors for supporting the Bully Resistance Show. Also, if you have not subscribed to the show, you can actually go to www.davebond.org. That's www.davebond.org and subscribe to the Bully Resistance Show with David Wells. So until next time, again, Gene, we appreciate you coming on the show, and we'll definitely go ahead and continue to help get the word out about your academy and everything that you're doing on Instagram. So until next time, thanks for listening.